Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Michael Lavery, Magic Pot.
Thank you. Thank you. You're receiving an introduction. We'll read it together. I'll read it and you follow along, actually. The mythos that I'm covering is about a god named Anansi. He is a trickster and a West African god. He's depicted generally as a spider or a human or combinations of the two, and is considered to be the god of all knowledge of all stories. And he's also one of the most important characters of those cultures and Caribbean folklore. His wife is known as Mrs. Anansi or Aso. American Gods is a modern novel by Neil Gaiman, and it contains the god Anansi, or he was pronounced as Mr. Nancy there. Among other mythical magical creatures, a later Gaiman novel, Anansi Boys, follow the sons of Anansi as they discover each other and their heritage. Through these novels, I have learned about Anansi and chosen as my topic. And tonight's story is being retold from the Magic Pot, also the name of this story tonight, and it's a collection of Anansi stories from the Caribbean. Thank you, Mr. Timer. The official speech will begin momentarily. The god Anansi was hunting in the forest one day, and he came upon a peculiar sight. There was an old rusty pot sitting just under a tree. Well, he went up to it and picked it up and said aloud to himself, "What is an old rusty pot doing in the middle of the forest?" Well, the pot said, "I'm an old rusty pot, but I am a magical pot." So he thought that was astonishing, and he was a little bit shocked, but he recovered from it and asked, "How are you magical?" "Well, I'm speaking to you, that's one of the elements, but also I have magical properties. Put me on the ground and say, 'Show me what you can do.'" So Anansi, being a god and having experienced some mysterious things, placed the pot back on the forest floor and stood back and said, "Show me what you can do." The pot immediately moved and spun around 1, 2, 3 times. A cloud of steam rose up and he smelled the most fragrant food. It smelled delicious. And when the steam cleared, there was a bountiful, bubbling pot full of delicious food. Well, Anansi, being a gluttonous god, scooped up the pot and began to eat until he was full. And having not captured any game, he put it in one of his sacks and threw it over his shoulder and went home. He was sitting on a bench outside of his house, and Mrs. Anansi called, "Time for dinner, come and eat." So he went inside and saw his family gathered around the table all eating. Said, "Honey, I don't feel hungry. I'm going to go to my room and have a nap." So he went to his room and bolted the door and silently took the pot out, whispered, "Show me what you can do." The pot spun around 3 times, steam rose up. The pot was full of delicious food, so he had a great helping and took a nap after he put the pot up in the sack and put it under his bed. The next day was much the same. He went hunting and came home and told his wife, "Honey, I don't feel like eating tonight. I'm just going to go and have a nap." Closed the door, said to the pot, "Show me what you can do." 3 times, spun around, steam rose up. He ate a great meal and went to bed. The next day, instead of hunting, he went out to his fields and surveyed his crops. Well, his wife did a general cleaning of the house, sweeping and tidying it up, moving furniture. She came to the bedroom and looked under the bed, and sure enough, there was a sack there that she had never seen, so she lifted it out, opened it up. What could this be? An old rusty pot. "Well, I don't recognize that." She said aloud to whoever was there, her children, "What is this rusty pot doing here?" The pot said, "I am an old rusty pot, but I am a magical pot." Well, she was shaken to her core and said, "What is this? That's very peculiar. Why are you here? What kind of magical properties do you have?" "Well, put me on the ground and say, 'Show me what you can do.'" Well, being married to a god and seeing things like this, she tried it and said, "What the heck? What could happen? Show me what you can do." And the pot spun around 3 times and filled with food. Not Wanting to spoil the bounty, she brought it to her children and gave them a delicious meal, and she also showed them the magic of the pot and told them the trick, the magic word, show me what you can do. Had another feast. She tidied up from the kitchen and cleaned the pot and put it back so that Anansi wouldn't know. But little did she know, cleaning it removed all of its magical properties. Well, Mr. Anansi came home and he went to bed again without supper seemingly, but Mrs. Anansi knew that he was probably using the magic pot for food. Well, he pulled it out and said to it, show me what you can do. The pot did nothing. It didn't move, it didn't spin, it didn't steam, it didn't boil over. Well, he tried it again. Show me what you can do. No movement. Well, disappointed, he put it in the sack and went to bed hungry. Too prideful to ask his wife to make dinner for him. The next day he went out hunting, brought the sack with him, returned it to the tree where he had found it. Well, as he was placing it down, he noticed a long strip of cowhide. It was tanned leather, so it couldn't have just fallen in the forest. Picking it up, he admired it and said, what is this piece of old cow leather doing here? I may be a piece of old cow leather, but I'm a magical piece of cow leather. So he knew the magic words and said, show me what you can do. And cow leather started whipping him furiously, and he was running, trying to get away from it. It was beating him around the head and chest. Finally, he wrestled it and got it back into a sack and carried it home. Well, he placed this in his bedroom under the bed and said to his wife, I'm not hungry, I'm going to go rest. The next day, he went hunting in the forest. His wife went to get the pot to feed the children. Well, it felt a little lighter and oddly shaped, but she opened it up and said, what is this cow leather doing here? And the cow leather said, I may be an old piece of cow leather, but I'm a magical piece of cow leather. Well, her son, not thinking, just said, shouted out, show me what you can do, knowing the secret words. And the whip started hitting them all and chasing them around the room while they ran from the house and were running around the yard, and every once in a while the whip would change from person to person and chase them all over for hours. Anansi came home and saw the ruckus and wrestled the leather whip to the ground again and got it in his sack. The family was very thankful. And he put it underneath his bed to return it the next day. He said to himself, that'll teach them a lesson. He brought the whip back to the forest, and the moral of the story is, when you see trouble, leave it where it lies.